Hey guys, Dan here with this week's TV news and reviews. We have 5 shows for you this week. Usually we do 6, but it is the summer season now, so there's less shows coming out. In fact, one of the shows has been on for like 2 months, and I just kind of missed it, so threw that in too. But it's actually good because we have a ton of news to talk about. So let's just get right into that. We have a bunch of renewals and cancellations. ABC and NBC have finally announced their final renewals and cancellations. They've previously put their whole schedules up. I think ABC actually hadn't yet by the time I last recorded. NBC just did. But ABC put up their fall schedule, and some of the things are going to be mid-season, but they're hoping that as long as Hollywood can reopen within the next month or two, I guess, that a lot of the regular shows will be able to at least have a couple episodes in the can by fall premieres. Originally, the new Kira Sedgwick show was going to be a fall series, but they have moved that to mid-season to make way for Blackish, because obviously, you know, Black Lives Matter is a huge thing going on right now. Blackish really does speak more than any other, certainly network show, to a lot of those issues. So, besides that fact, they don't even have a pilot episode for the Kira Sedgwick show because all the series pilots got shut down before they were able to be completed, for the most part. But that was one of them that got shut down. So they didn't even have one episode to run of that show. And Blackish, of course, it is sort of a machine at this point. It's going into, I want to say, season 7. Maybe season 6, but I think it might be 7. So a couple days after they announced their fall schedule, they said, oh, you know what, we are actually going to put Blackish back on the schedule for the fall and not mid-season. Mixed-ish is still going to be a mid-season show, but Blackish will be on in the fall. But ABC is running down to one night of comedy, much like a lot of the other networks. CBS will still have 2. They'll still have Monday and Thursday. NBC is only going to have 1 hour of comedy come fall, and that's going to be Superstore and Brooklyn Nine-Nine. And then ABC is down to one night, moving from Tuesday and Wednesday to just Wednesday, which makes sense because they canceled over half their comedies. Modern Family was ending anyway. So their lineup on Wednesdays now is going to be The Goldbergs, Blackish, The Connors, and American Housewife. And then Mixed-ish, the new Kira Sedgwick show, and I think there's one other one will be moved to mid-season, and they'll start sometime in January. But in terms of ABC's cancellations and renewals, they have renewed the show for life for season 2, which I thought was pretty good. I gave that a pretty high review when I first watched it. That came on like in March of this year, maybe February, but that got, I think, 10 or 13 episodes for the season. So that will be back. And then they have canceled officially The Baker and the Beauty, which I will be reviewing on today's show, even though it's done already and there's going to be no more episodes, but whatever. You can still watch it on Hulu and stuff if you're interested. So that has been officially canceled. NBC has officially put through their final renewals and cancellations. They are taking out, no surprises here, Bluff City Law, Sunnyside, and Indebted, all of those done. But they have renewed Manifest for season 3. I gave up on that show about 4 episodes into season 1. The acting is so terrible on Manifest, but I guess it has a big enough audience that they're going to keep going with that for season 3. Over on Hulu, we've got 2 cancellations. Harlots, which I am not really aware of this show, but it had 3 seasons under its belt. But that has been canceled. And then Reprisal, which I did review pretty recently, with a middling review, I think. I think it was probably in the C range. That is done after 1 season. They're both sort of period pieces on Hulu, but Hulu has renewed 2 of their adult animated series. Solar Opposites, which was already had a 2-season contract, so it's actually been renewed for season 3, even though season 1 just went up not long ago. And I reviewed that pretty favorably, even though I'm not like a Rick and Morty fan, and it's from those same people. But then the other one is called Crossing Swords, and we're actually going to take care of reviewing that this week. That just premiered recently on Hulu, but already I guess the response was good enough that they're giving that a season 2. The only other one I have is Betty on HBO has been renewed. This is a series I did not care for. I think I might have given it a D+. It's not good, but I guess, critically it's been doing very well. The audience response has been more in line with me. I think it's got like a 90% critics rating on Rotten Tomatoes, but like a 50 or 55 or something audience rating. So I'm definitely, even lower than the normal audience rating, I think, for this show. But if you do like Betty, that will be getting a season 2. All right, so let's move on, because like I said, we have a ton of news to get to. Coronavirus is still sort of making sweeping changes in Hollywood. The first soap to go back to recording their shows is The Bold and the Beautiful, and they did a day's worth of shows and then paused again for at least 5 more days to test everybody for coronavirus. The press release I read didn't specifically say like that somebody had contracted it or that they knew somebody had contracted it, but they just want to test and be cautious. I think it's odd that they're doing that after they did 1 day of shooting. So I think something probably did transpire that maybe they're just not revealing. But they also kind of jumped the gun. I mean, most Hollywood productions are still being shut down until further notice. So, but it makes sense with soap operas. I wasn't sure. I hadn't really thought about it because I don't watch soaps, but I sort of hadn't thought about what they've been doing since the shutdown, because obviously you can't record new episodes. I know SNL did a great parody on one of their last live shows that they did, where they had like a social distancing soap opera kind of thing. It was the one Daniel Craig hosted, and it was a very funny sketch. But then, like a week later, when everything did get shut down, it does kind of make you wonder, like, what are they gonna do? They're supposed to be all new episodes. Soap operas generally don't do reruns. But I assume they probably have been doing some repeats the last couple months. Yeah, so... But anyway, The Bold and Beautiful shut down again. And then one other thing. So You Think You Can Dance is not going to be back this year on Fox. It's a summer staple, and it's one that they did not get to record enough of. They did some of the tryouts, the auditions, but, they didn't do any of the... like the judges in front of the studio audience stuff yet. And right now, of course, they probably can't. America's Got Talent is still doing the audition portion that's already been filmed. But what are they going to do when it does come to the live shows for HGT? I'm not sure. Probably have a very limited capacity. I mean, American Idol was able to do, social distancing things from the people's homes and stuff. I think... I'm not sure when the live shows are supposed to start anyway, but probably within the next few weeks. I think it's usually like mid-July they start the live shows. Maybe they're hoping things will be a little different in California by then, and you can do some sort of social distancing, inside a theater sort of thing. But Fox has obviously not canceled the show. It's a big hit for them, and they said they're happy to see it return in the summer of 2021. But for this current year, there will be no season of So You Think You Can Dance, which for them must be kind of a bummer, because they really did not have a lot of stuff in the can. I mean, I guess all the networks are sort of dealing with that. Big Brother over on CBS, and like I said, America's Got Talent and stuff. But at the same time, those other networks have a bigger conglomeration. CBS has been mining the Paramount Movies vault. NBC is owned by Universal, so they have a lot of options too. But ever since Disney bought Fox, the channel, doesn't even have access to their movies anymore. So, it's interesting that, to see what they're going to do. But they are one of the networks that is really holding, other than their animation domination block Sundays, is holding all of their shows till mid-season, and the fall is going to consist of a lot of already produced shows or shows from other networks like the Spectrum Network and Showtime and stuff like that they're just going to put on Fox that they bought. So, all right, those things are happening. What else? Jimmy Kimmel is taking the summer off. Usually, talk show hosts kind of run year-round, and they'll do 2 or 3 weeks off, maybe at a clip. But for the most part, they run year-long. Now, that doesn't count daytime shows like Ellen. Ellen always takes the summer off. But for a late-night talk show, of course, people are promoting things. So especially like summer movies, late-night talk show circuit is huge for movie promotion. So he's going to do 2 weeks of reruns and then just have guest hosts for the remainder of the time. He's still doing his show from his home, so I imagine the guest host will also be doing something similar. And he's done that before. When his son was having a lot of health complications, he took off for a while. But for the most part, he does work year round. But in other Kimmel news, he's actually going to be hosting the Emmys in September. So not only, does he probably need a break, he's a little burned out from doing the talk show every day and focusing on new ways to do it from the home, but he's going to have to start prepping an Emmy monologue and bits and stuff like that for that program. So that will transfer us into the Emmy chatter. So the Emmys is opening up their nominations a little bit because of the huge number of shows that are on these days. And they've been opening it up, I guess, unofficially. Like the last couple of years, there have been a lot more nominees than usual for things like Best Comedy, Best Drama, and even in some of the acting categories. But they've laid out a new, mathematical grid, basically, for how many nominations a show can get of a certain type. So if there's 50 shows that submit for a particular category, then that will determine the number of nominations. Or if there's 100 shows in a category that get submitted, that will determine a higher amount of nominations, etc. So I don't have the exact numbers, for the grid, and I don't think it really matters much. But they have said that there will be up to 8 nominations in Best Comedy and Best Drama, which makes sense because there's so many shows on right now. And I mean, this show here that I do, this review show, is a testament to that. I started doing it in September, and we've gotten, for the most part, 6 new shows every single week. At Christmas time, it fell off a little bit. There was more like 3 or 4, and this week we have only 5. But for the most part, it's been about 6 every single week, and that's just brand new shows. That's not, that's all I review for the most part. I'm not reviewing shows that are coming back for season 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, whatever. So there's upwards of almost, I don't know if it's more than 600, but there was 500 and some. I think it's like 580 or 590. The higher 500s number of original shows, and I think that's scripted shows only. I don't think that even counts the Kardashians and America's Got Talent. I don't think it counts reality. I don't think it counts docuseries. I think that is scripted only, and there's almost 600 of them currently on TV, streaming, whatever. So for the Emmys to not even have 10 nominees seems silly, but they're going to have 8 for the major categories, and that includes the major acting categories as well. But the Emmy series, or the Emmy Awards, is scheduled as planned in September, and Jimmy Kimmel will be the host. And like I said, since he's taking off most of the summer, that will be probably one of the first things we kind of see him back with. But I love Jimmy Kimmel. He does a great job hosting things. So, all right, what else? Oh, 30 Rock, yes. So 30 Rock announced last week that they are going to be doing a one-off, quote-unquote, episode. I looked a little more into it. I thought it was going to be an actual episode or something similar to the Parks and Rec reunion special they did in May, but it's actually not. It's going to be part of the NBC Upfronts, which means the Upfronts is when typically every season the network puts up all their new content and all their returning content that they want to showcase to the advertisers, and the advertisers get to pick and choose what they want, and oh my gosh, this new show looks great, oh, this new show looks horrible, whatever. And sometimes they broadcast them on television. NBC actually used to do it. When I was a kid, NBC did it every year. I don't remember if the other networks did, but NBC every season, usually it was like on a Friday or Saturday night, they would have like an hour-long special of, here's the new shows that we've got for you this fall, and here's the returning shows that we can't wait to show you, what they've been up to. So this year, because there were no real upfronts for advertisers, because everything's been virtual, NBC is sort of bringing that idea back around to having it be shown on television, and it's going to be sort of an episode of 30 Rock based around the new fall lineup. But it makes sense because the show within a show on 30 Rock, which was the Girly Show with Tracy Jordan, was on NBC. So I imagine they're going to have some sort of show within a show context of the 30 Rock crowd doing the upfront, but it's actually going to be real shows instead of the fake shows that they showed us on 30 Rock. But either way, I'm excited to see these guys again. I love Tina Fey as Liz Lemon. Really, the whole gang. I mean, Baldwin as Jack Donaghy. Now, I learned from reading the article about this upfront that the upcoming Ted Danson show, Mr. Mayor, that is going to launch in mid-season because it is a comedy, and like I said, the only two comedies on the fall schedule are Superstore and Brooklyn Nine-Nine, but it's called Mr. Mayor, and it's the new Ted Danson show. Apparently, that was originally slated to be a spin-off of sorts from 30 Rock, and it was supposed to star Alec Baldwin as Jack, and he is now the mayor of New York, and so it was set in that world. But after about a year of negotiations, Baldwin, didn't sign on for it. So NBC went in a different direction. The Good Place was ending, so they called their good buddy Ted Danson. And so now, Danson did not want to move, though, to New York. He said, I'll do the show, but I need to stay in L.A. with my family and everything. And look, he's lived in L.A., as far as I know, since the Cheers days. So he's been there a long time. So it makes sense. So they have moved that series completely to LA. It's not going to have any 30 Rock connections, but it's still going to have probably the same type of feel because it is going to be Tina Fey and Robert Carlock doing the show. But yeah, I thought that was interesting because I didn't realize that the Mr. Mayor show was supposed to be a spin-off of sorts from 30 Rock. So, all right, finally we got through this news pretty fast. Finally, we have This Week in Reboots, 2 new shows for you. The Smurfs has a new show coming to Nickelodeon, and I grew up with the Smurfs in the 80s, and then they had the movies recently that were, the first one was okay, the rest of them were pretty bad. I think there were 3 total. There honestly might have been 4. I think there were 3 though. But anyway, that's part of Nickelodeon's sort of new remake series. There's going to be a Ninja Turtle show. I think that might already be on. But there's a new Garfield show coming to Nickelodeon that's already been announced, and now this new Smurfs show. And it's gonna have all your favorites: Papa Smurf and Smurfette and Brainy and Hefty and all of that kind of stuff. And then the other thing, it's also an animated series. Jody is coming to Comedy Central, starring Tracy Ellis Ross as the title character. Now, what is Jody? Why is that a reboot? Because it is a spin-off of Daria. And this has been talked about for at least a few years. And I'm a huge Daria fan, so I've been sort of watching out for news about this over the last few years. But it was always going to sort of be centered around the Jody character. Jody is Daria's African-American friend. And she really was, a pretty minor character. Her and her boyfriend were fairly minor characters in the world of Daria. But as soon as I saw this idea, I thought, well, this is great. I mean, I would certainly love to see what Daria herself is up to, and maybe there will be, some cameos here or there from those characters. But this will focus on Jody. I think it's going to focus on her post-college. But Tracy Ellis Ross is going to voice her, and I don't have word about anybody else or anything else. But Comedy Central, I think, is a good fit for this because MTV is sort of in the revision mode right now. They're trying to revive a lot of their older series, but they don't really want to put them on their own network because MTV has its own sort of different brand right now than it did even 10, 15 years ago. And it's for, I think, a lot younger of an audience than certainly when I was a kid. It was for, all ages. I mean, it was mostly music videos when I was a kid, but, then they started doing more things for, like, the college-age kid. They started doing, like, the spring break stuff. But I think now their audience is even younger than that. Ever since they were doing things like the Silent Library and stuff like that, I think that was for, like, high school and middle school kids. So obviously there's no attachment there to the Daria series, or some of the other shows that they're trying to remake. But MTV is owned by Viacom, which is Nickelodeon, Comedy Central, BET, a lot of these other properties. So it makes sense that MTV is going to kind of farm these properties out to Nick or Comedy Central or whoever else. So makes sense that that will air on Comedy Central. All right, so that is the news. Let's get to the reviews. We have 5 of them for you, like I said. The first one we're going to talk about is one that is near and dear to my heart, but it is one that I would say is the highest profile of this week's new shows, and that is Love, Victor. This is basically a spin-off and something that takes place in the same world as the film Love, Simon and the book that movie was based on. And I famously love that movie, Love, Simon. I did a review of it the night it came out. I don't usually do, premiere videos, but I went to that movie the opening night with my sister, and I just loved it, and I cried through the whole thing, and I saw it a second time in theaters and cried again, and I've seen it a couple times since. It's a fantastic movie. It's the best mainstream movie that's ever been made about gay love, certainly in a high school setting. And there've been a couple indie movies along the way, but that movie is just, it's incredible, and it makes me so happy as somebody who was a gay kid in high school that these things exist now for young, LGBTQ people. And so Love, Victor basically is in the same world, set a couple of years later. So Simon, the character, is involved, sort of. He actually is, text buddies with the main character. And word is he appears in person in episode 8 of the series, and it's played by Nick Robinson from the original movie. But the main star of this is Michael Cimino, and he plays Victor Salazar. And basically, he's a new kid at Creekwood. His family moved at the beginning. In the very first episode, they moved there. Him and his sister, and they are a Puerto Rican family, half Puerto Rican, half Colombian, I guess. And they are sort of finding their way in the school. The sister's having a real rough time. She's a freshman, and Victor is a little older. I believe he's a junior. And he is a little more confused, I think, than Simon. Simon, as a character, completely gay. But Victor definitely is questioning what he is and who he is. There's a girl, Mia, who he becomes friends with, played by Rachel Naomi Hilson, and he, kind of likes her, doesn't know. She definitely likes him. I watched 2 episodes of this, of the 10 that are up, so I have a little more than just the first episode to go on. But at the end of the second episode, he basically texts Simon and says, hey, listen, I'm not sure what I am. Have you ever liked a girl that, you thought maybe you guys were just friends, but you turned out you had kind of a crush on her. So he got Simon's text, or Simon's number, I guess, through this Creek Secrets thing that appeared in the movie. It's basically like a high school app where people at Creekwood can go on anonymously and talk about things, and that's how Simon was outed in the movie. Spoiler alert there. But but Victor, finds him and starts texting him for some advice and this and that and the other thing. And the dad here is James Martinez, who is the dad on One Day at a Time as well. So he's, definitely got the acting chops to be in this sort of Latina, Mexican, type family. They're Mexican in One Day at a Time, Puerto Rican here. But the problem I have really with the series is those parents. Him and the wife, Victor's parents, they're very underwritten. And they've gotten a couple of good scenes, specifically the dad, I think. Although the mom and the daughter sort of have a nice little scene going on, too. The daughter kind of going through her boyfriend back home, breaking up with her, and having, issues in the new city and making friends and all of that. But they're just very, very underwritten thus far. And I know it's not a show about the parents, but the parents in Love, Simon, played by Jennifer Garner and Timothy Olyphant, I know, not Timothy Olyphant. It's Josh Duhamel. Shoot, now I can't remember who plays the dad in Love, Simon. But anyway, it's one of those like typical guys that you always see. I think it is Timothy Olyphant, but either way, the point is they were a bit underwritten in the movie, but you got such a sense of them right away in just the first couple of scenes that they're in. Here, we not only don't get that, but there's also this like weird tension between the parents, and they're like give each other weird looks or whatever. And as the audience, you're like, okay, well, are you gonna explain what's going on? Like, and I'm sure they do as the series goes on, but in these first two episodes, it's really kind of annoying. It's just like, all right, either do something with this, or don't even hint at it until you're ready to talk about it, kind of thing. But what this show gets right is everything else that the movie got right. I mean, the emotions of being a questioning teen, especially one in a new town that, you're just trying to fit in, but at the same time, like, is being gay fitting in. And what's nice is Victor has the Simon template to go off of. And in fact, the vice principal from the movie reprises her role here, and she's very, very funny, so I'm glad they brought her back. I was hoping they would. But she actually tells Simon's story to Victor, in one of the first scenes. And so Victor's like, oh, this is great. Like, this whole school's, like, cool with gay kids and whatever. However, he starts getting made fun of because the one gay kid that is out, that sort of becomes friends with him, they make fun of Victor for, like, oh, go get it, honey, kind of thing. Go get it, new kid, and so a lot of that stuff carries right over from the movie. It's and a lot of the same people worked on the show that worked on the movie, so it makes sense. This was originally supposed to go to Disney Plus, and I'm very glad that it didn't. It opens them up to do a little bit more. I mean, it's still very, very PG-13. There's nothing. There's no bad cursing in it. I think they dropped the S-bomb twice in the two episodes I saw, but really, it's very PG-13. It's pretty safe for, I think, the content, but definitely I think they'll be able to explore some of the more risque and deeper themes than they would have on Disney Plus. In reading about this show, I also learned High Fidelity was supposed to go to Disney Plus, which is over on Hulu now, and that's like ridiculous because that is just sexified and tons of cursing, and obviously that they decided that would go to Hulu pretty early on in the process because I can't imagine them putting that anywhere near Disney Plus the way it is. But this could probably go to Disney Plus the way it is because obviously you have some PG-13 movies on there. But I like that it went to Hulu more. I think they will be able to explore a little bit more with it. But so far, I think this is a fantastic show. I really would like to see them write the adult characters a little bit better. But for the time being, I think this follows in the Love Simon tradition. I think anybody that is in the LGBT community, whether you're still in high school or, like me, a bit older than that, let's say, but even if you're not, even if you are just an ally and want to learn a little bit more about what it does feel like for a lot of gay kids that haven't come out yet in high school, this is a great template for that. So I'm going to give Love Victor an A-. Good stuff for sure. So we'll stick with Hulu, I guess, because Crossing Swords is on there, and I brought that up earlier as it has been renewed already for season 2. It is from the Robot Chicken people for the most part. It's an adult animated stop motion series, and it gives us some voice actors like Nicholas Hoult, Luke Evans, Seth Green, Tony Hale, and Adam Pally. And there's some girls involved too, but I don't know, other than Yvette Nicole Brown, I don't know a couple of these women. Maya Erskine and Alana Ubach. Alana Ubach is an actress that played Mama Imelda in Coco, so that's really the only thing I know her from. But she's also done some bit roles in movies and stuff. And then Maya Erskine has been in a lot of things I just haven't seen. Betas, Man Seeking Woman, Pen 15. She's part of as well, which I did watch the pilot episode of. But anyway, so that's some of the voice talent here. And essentially, the show follows Patrick, who is voiced by Nicholas Hoult. He is the king's new squire. He was a peasant, and now he's landed this hot position as a squire at the royal castle. And his dream turns sour very quickly as he learns that the people that really run the castle are all kind of jerks and crooks and neophytes and all that kind of thing. This show is really not good. It's funny, like Solar Opposites, I sort of thought might not be good because I don't really like Rick and Morty. Really, I've never given Rick and Morty its due. I admit that, but the fan base of Rick and Morty just makes me angry and want to never watch it. So, but I did try like half of the first episode of Rick and Morty, and I didn't think it was good. So, Solar Opposites, I was like, I don't think this is going to be very good, and turned out I really liked it. But Robot Chicken I like, so when I heard, oh, it's from the same people that did Robot Chicken, this will be cool. It's not good, and here's my main issue with it. It's the same issue I have with things like the Happy Time Murders that had like the puppets, being really vulgar, and a live action Melissa McCarthy on that. It's this whole idea of puppets, or in this case, animated characters saying gross, inappropriate, foul things equals comedy. And to me, it doesn't. To me, it equals annoying. Like, I get it. Wow, that you know the F word, and you made a Lego type character say it. That's crazy. Like, it's not. You need a good script. You need good jokes. And the Happy Time Murders had the exact same problem. I liked the original premise of it, but then they had no jokes. They were just like, let's be vulgar and say things. And we've talked about a couple shows like this. I think there was one on Adult Swim that I reviewed a few months ago that was very similar to this. You need some writing. Just because a person, gets decapitated and then the other person, starts saying a string of profanities, that's not a funny scene. What I like about Robot Chicken is, Robot Chicken's different because it was sketches, but it was just inventive. They were basically, clever sketches, or skits, and they were short. Here it's like they're trying to do a sitcom, I guess, but the only jokes really are the swearing. I can't say the only jokes, but the main jokes, the main premise of the comedy is mined from these stop motion animation creatures, and they look like those little people. They're not Lego people, but they look like the people with like the little holes in the bottom, and you can like move them, from town to town, like kind of play school type things, I guess. So that makes it even worse because it's like they're purposely trying to make them look like toys that a 5-year-old might play with. But oh, he said the F word, it's just not funny. But premise-wise, I think it's all right, and the voice acting's good. Nicholas Hoult is really like getting his foot in the door lately. He's been in quite a few things that I've reviewed. He was in a movie recently. He's in that new show on Hulu that I just reviewed not long ago, and now he's doing a voice here. I think he has a voice in something else too, pretty recently. But anyway, it's pretty much not good. Again, I do like the voice acting, and the premise is good. It's not like it's nothing we've seen before. It's not completely original, but yeah, I'm gonna leave Crossing Swords with a D+. Even just the name, like Crossing Swords, like that's when two boys are peeing and they're crossing the streams or whatever. I don't know. It's like, it's immature. Like, just have a good writer. Just have one good writer in the room saying, like, maybe instead of just dropping a bunch of F-bombs, we could say this line, and it seems like, there was nothing like that on board. Like Sausage Party. That is animated food being dirty, but they had a lot of really, really good jokes. So, that's the difference. All right, so up next we're going to talk about Hightown. This is over on Starz. This is a show that I talked about last week getting renewed, and yet I had not watched the first episode yet. So I checked that out today, and here we've got Monica Raymond playing the lead character, Jackie Quinones. She is a marine fisheries service agent in Provincetown, Massachusetts, which is known for being very, very gay. It's a very gay town, and she's got some addiction problems to alcohol and drugs. And in the very first episode, one of the first scenes, she finds the body of a murdered woman, and so an investigation takes place with a couple of detectives played by Doan Norwood and James Badge Dale, and in that they are going to explore sort of the underbelly of the Cape Cod, crime scene and the mafia scene and all of that sort of stuff. And what can I say? This show, is sort of good. This is one of these where it's like, I maybe should have watched 2 episodes, but one was kind of enough because I didn't love it enough to be like real curious about the second episode. But as the first episode goes, it definitely gets better. The first like half, it does that thing that I hate where a character is introduced only by what drugs they're putting in their body and how much of a lesbian they are. It's a problem I had with the Batwoman show on CW. We get it. This woman loves to, abuse her cocaine and her opioids, and she loves licking the vagina. Like, we got it. But let's give me some of the story about the crime. Let me see some of the crime story before we get to, 3 sex scenes, before anything happens. So this is another case of, we get it, you're on Starz, you can have a sex scene, but please can we define this character by something other than she's a lesbian and she's a drug addict? It's fine. Many people are, but give us a little bit more. Like in Love, Victor, for example, that first, it's a half-hour show, so half as long as Hightown. We get such a more well-rounded picture of who Victor is other than, someone who's questioning his sexuality than we get here with this character. So, it's definitely another case of some lazy writing, but the crime portion, which we focus on a good bit more in the second half of the pilot episode, is a lot more well-rounded, a lot more intriguing than the first part. So there's definitely things I liked about Hightown, but not enough, I think, to recommend it. So I'm just going to leave it with a straight-up C. Also, the performances are, very average. I think C is a good grade all around. The performances just are not, they're okay, but they're not anything mind-blowing, much like sort of the lazy script writing. So we'll leave that with a C. Let's go to ABC for our last 2 shows, and the first one is a game show. We did a couple of game shows, was it just last week? I think it was, or maybe it was 2 weeks ago. But the summer is great time for game shows in prime time. ABC learned that years ago when they brought back the Match Game and Celebrity Family Feud and Press Your Luck and all of that. And all those shows are still running, but they're filling their schedule with even more of the game shows, and this one is called Don't, and it's hosted by Adam Scott, who we love from Parks and Recreation, and it is produced and narrated by Ryan Reynolds, which is really adding a lot of things to this. They call him the Don't Master, but really he's like the narrator, and then Adam Scott is the host, and basically it's about a family of 4 that comes on. I saw the first 2 episodes of this just to get the whole gameplay down. But basically, a family of 4 will come on and have to go through a series of challenges in the hopes of earning $100,000. Or, they earn money for each of the things that they accomplish. So they can earn up to $100,000 basically. But it's called Don't because you're basically supposed to not do something. Don't, whatever it is. So, for example, in one, they had a dude on a treadmill, and they were feeding him hot peppers and stuff, and they were increasingly hot, and he, Adam Scott would present him with a new ice cold beverage every time, ice cold lemonade, ice cold water, milk, and the idea of the game was don't drink, anything or whatever. And what else? There was one where they couldn't blink. Nobody could blink for a whole minute, and every time they did, they started at, I think, at 10,000 or 20,000 or something, and then every time somebody blinked in that minute, they lost $500 or something like that. The one gal didn't blink at all in the whole minute, so that was cool. But it adds a lot of the elements that we saw in the game show Game On that we talked about a couple weeks ago with Keegan-Michael Key. But this is definitely more fast-paced. I think it's more interesting. I think Adam Scott and Keegan-Michael Key are on par with each other in terms of hosting abilities and having fun with the audience. But because it's a Ryan Reynolds produced show and narrated by him, it adds a whole new level of hilarity. If you listen, I think at this point Ryan Reynolds might be an acquired taste because he is doing a lot of the same type of things. Detective Pikachu was basically just Deadpool in a PG version. and his feud with his fake feud with Hugh Jackman. It's like a lot of tongue-in-cheek stuff. And, people love it as Deadpool, but do they love it in Ryan Reynolds' other things? I don't know. I personally do. I think he's hilarious. And what is so great about this is that they actually tailor-made some of the comments to the coronavirus type of audience. Like, obviously, they shot this stuff months and months ago, and we're prepping it for summer. But, like, for example, one of the games, you had to take down numbers off a rotating clock. And there were, like, drawers coming out, like, whack-a-mole style, that were attempting to hit people. But all the questions had numerical answers. And so one of the questions was, how many years apart are each Summer Olympic Games? And so then you hear Ryan Reynolds in a voiceover saying, keep in mind we filmed this, before the Olympics in 2020 was canceled because the world went crazy. Like, he just throws in those kind of little witty lines. And Adam Scott does some voiceovers too. Like at one point before they went to commercials, Adam Scott was like, try to guess how many commercials in this next set will say the phrase "in these uncertain times," and that's obviously directly like a Corona joke. So it's kind of cool, and it adds a fun element to it. Other than that, the families they pick are like they're really like they're kind of dopey and they're fun to kind of make fun of, but you can tell they also have good sense of humor about themselves because they're all like busting each other's chops. So this to me is by far the most fun of the new summer game shows. We talked about Game On. We talked about Ultimate Tag over on Fox. The Yvette Nicole Brown one on Disney Plus is a lot of fun too, but I think this one might even be more fun than that. I had a lot of fun watching it. Ryan Reynolds and Adam Scott, make a great team, and these families they chose are just so silly. So I leave Don't with a B+. I think it's a lot of fun, and it's nice when you can have a lot of different types of games. Like Game On. That was one of the things I liked about Game On. Tag was tag. Just, now there's a different obstacle or whatever. Tag was just tag for an hour. But here and in Game On, there's a lot of variety to the games that are being played, which is always fun. It's kind of like Price is Right in that way. So finally, we're going to end with The Baker and the Beauty. This is on ABC as well, or was, I should say. I won't spend too much time on it because it's already been canceled and all the episodes have aired already. The reason this one sort of flew under the radar for me is because when I saw the title, I didn't really look into it. I assumed it was some sort of baking competition show, which I generally don't do a lot of competition shows to review on this. I've done some. I did like the cannabis cooking thing on Netflix, and we've done a couple, but for the most part, I stay away from that. Same with like dating shows. I've done some dating shows to review them, but really ones that are like talked about, and nobody was really talking about The Baker and the Beauty. But turns out it's not a reality cooking show. It's not a competition show. It is a soapy drama that is taken from an actual soap opera is from Israel, actually. I thought it was from a Spanish one for a second, but that's just because most of the people in this show are Spanish American. And we have Victor Rasuk as the star here. Daniel Garcia is who he plays, and he's a baker at his family's business, Raphael's. And in the very first episode, they packed a ton, by the way, into this first 45-minute episode. He gets proposed to by his girlfriend of 4 years, who is this real hot babe, and she gets declined. He then, is kind of off on his own and sort of sulking, and he meets up with this very, very famous model named Noah Hamilton, who is played by Nathalie Kelly. And basically she's like an Australian model and entrepreneur that wants to sort of take Daniel under her wing and as her own. And, oh, you seem like such a nice guy. You're not like all the guys that I usually date and stuff. I want to get to know you better kind of thing. So they sort of start on this whirlwind romance by the end of the first episode. But I really liked this show for some reason. I mean, I can't say it's, amazing and so well written. And no, it's your typical nighttime soap. But compared to some that I've seen. I liked a bunch of the characters here. The acting's okay. I sort my acting meter for soap operas is sort of like Desperate Housewives to me is like top tier soap opera type acting. You know, Desperate Housewives, and then like down from there you have things like Melrose Place maybe, or like 90210, where it's like they're campy, but you can tell these people have some sort of acting ability. And then you have like the real, you know, lower tier ones that I would say are more like, no offense, but like daytime soap operas I think of. And of course we've seen some famous people come out of daytime soaps, but this is like sort of somewhere in the middle of, I think, what you would normally expect from a nighttime soap opera. Something with a bigger budget, so they have some better actors in the mix. It reminds me a little bit of that show that was on last summer. I think it was also ABC. It was called, it was something Hotel, Paradise Hotel maybe? I can't remember the name of it, but this is sort of in that vein. You know, the acting's like serviceable, but I wouldn't expect to see these people nominated for Oscars anytime soon, but they certainly get the job done and make these characters fun, and they do that here with The Baker and the Beauty. Even though it's been canceled, I think this is actually one I will probably end up watching all the episodes of. I think there's only 10 maybe. Is it 10 or 13? That's usually the number for like one season wonders here. Why isn't it telling me? I don't know. Here we go. 9. There's only 9 episodes, and they've all aired already. The last one aired a couple weeks ago, but they're all still available on Hulu. So if you are interested at this show, you know, I would check it out. But they really crammed a lot of stuff going on in that first 45 minutes, and you do get to know, you know, a handful of these characters pretty well in that 45-minute intake. And you do really have a soft spot, I think, for the lead character. I did, at least. So I leave Beauty and the Baker with a B-. It's not going to set the world on fire, and I'm not necessarily sorry that it got canceled, but I'll watch and enjoy the 9 episodes that exist, I think, of this show. So that's going to do it. I usually try to keep these under 45 minutes, and we've just hit that mark. So next week, I know I'm going to talk about the new Perry Mason show on HBO, and there's a new game show on Netflix called The Floor is Lava. But other than that, now that we're in sort of the throes of summer, there's not going to be a ton of new product, especially since Hollywood was shut down. Anything that maybe was supposed to premiere over the summer, you know, that is not now, maybe pushed to the fall, maybe canceled entirely. I don't know. But as a result, I think for some of these next few weeks, if I only have 2 or 3 new shows to talk about, I'm going to actually redo a review that I did in the last year or so, and see how the whole season holds up. Because most of these shows, I only watch the first episode or 2, so I can give you guys, you know, a good sort of gauge about what I think. But maybe not on the whole, because either the episodes aren't all posted yet, or, you know, if it's something like Netflix, I usually am not going to binge, you know, 10 hours of a show just so I can review it for 6 minutes, you know. So, but with a little more time this summer, other than catching up on some older shows, I'd like to maybe review some full seasons for you of shows I only got to review 1 or 2 episodes of originally. So we can look forward to that. Also, I want to finally catch this Michael Jordan documentary, The Last Dance. So I'll probably have a review for that at some point. I just downloaded that entire series now that that's over. So I may do that in the next couple weeks too. So other than that, though, we've got a bunch of new stuff on the channel coming. Disney reviews are still happening. I'm going to do one in a couple days with Joe for Cinderella, and then I have one with Tim next week for, I believe it's Treasure Island. We're going chronologically, so we're starting right now with the early 1950s movies. And then movie reviews, I'll have more of those over the weekend. And I think we're going to have some food reviews, too. Food Fanatics is returning. I've got some interesting tasting potato chips for the summer, and we're going to talk about those in Food Fanatics with my buddy Joe. So a lot of stuff still to come on the channel. Thank you so much for watching for the TV news and reviews this week, and we'll see you back here next time. Bye.